Founded in 1991 by patients, the FSHD Society is the largest grassroots network of FSHD patients, their families, and research activists. The FSHD Society offers a community of support, news, and information for the millions of people affected by FSHD worldwide. This is FSHD Society Radio. Welcome all to the FSHD Society Radio Show. Thanks for being here, joining us yet for another episode. And so excited to have our next guest in. We'll get to that in just a second, but I want to make sure you all know how to get in touch with the show. Email is the best way. fshdradio@fshdsociety.org is the best connection. During the show, since this is a pre-recorded show, I will try to always to be involved with the comments throughout, if it's Facebook, YouTube, etc., and kind of read along with anything you guys have to say and comment along with you as this show airs. You want to find out about events or things going on, of course, visit fshdsociety.org for all that information. Quick thank you to our three sponsors of the show, Perkin Elmer, Dyne Therapeutics, and Fulcrum Therapeutics, as we blaze in here to the next year, which is 2022, which is when this is going to be airing. We're excited to have them aboard yet again for another year. And without their help, without their support, the show would still go on, but it just might not be as fun or maybe have that power punch that it needs. So we always thank our sponsors. So I wanted to get to our featured guest today. He is Rick Whitehead. He's waiting there in the wings, and wanted to introduce him without any further delay. Hi, Rick. Thanks for hanging out and joining us here for the show today.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. So tell us first question. I always like to, some people might know you and some might not. So I kind of want to get everybody on the same page. Why don't you take a second and tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of get to know you.
Okay, well, I'm living in Knoxville, Tennessee since '98. I've been to two of the biannual conferences. The first one in Las Vegas, and then the second one in Atlanta. I haven't been able to get to some of the others, but I hope to go to Orlando. I say 95% I will be there and hope to meet a lot of people that I've spoken to. So that's it.
Are you also in artist as well?
Pro artist, yes. I went to the Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia back in the late 70s and had been pursuing an art profession all of these years.
What kind of art are you into? Is it painting, drawing, sketching?
Painting and drawing, and it's changed quite a bit over the years. I went to a very traditional school and have branched out from that. I'm very interested in investigating and seeing new things. So, oops, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Cell phones.
Yeah, I know. I get those notifications too. During these recordings, I'm like, oh yeah, I think I have an email. So I find it always interesting, right? That people with FSHD, and I kind of wanted to talk to you about that side of it too, a little bit about your FSHD story, but also how people kind of work through their life with the disease, and if it's the professional or if it's hobbies, for you being a professional artist. So I guess I want to back up first, though, and kind of tell us a little bit about your FSHD story and your involvement.
Well, I didn't discover that I had FSHD until I was in my early 50s. I have an older brother, Wayne Whitehead, who's 8 years older than I am, and he's the one that really discovered through observation of a professional that we had FSH. And soon thereafter, we went up to Rochester and met with Dr. Twill, and he gave us the DNA confirmation that we had it. So we became aware of it late in life because really it became manifest in such a way that we knew something was going on. But when we look back, we can recognize why I was never able to do sit-ups or very limited number of push-ups, didn't appear to have upper back muscles, winging in the shoulder blades. So the fortunate thing is that it doesn't really affect an artist. So I've been very fortunate that I've been able to paint through all of these years and draw and don't really have any kind of issue. Maybe a little bit of eyesight, nothing to do with the FSHD, but really my eyesight's pretty good. And if I need a little support to hold the brush out for very long, painters used a maul stick in the ancient times anyway to rest their hand and steady it. So that's something I'm going to always be able to do. I'm very happy about that. And I'm playing a lot of duplicate bridge and very competitive. And
Nice.
Does not affected by FSH at all. So I enjoy that. So I can only look back and understand why I had certain issues during my life, and happy to have an answer for them, and trying to be very proactive in making things as good as I can for myself for as long as I can. And so the society's been wonderful in creating relationships with the clinicians and with other people with FSH. I find it a wonderful community that I embrace.
Yeah, you've mentioned that, talking about the conferences, Las Vegas, Atlanta, and sounds like you're excited to come join the group in Orlando. What kind of what kind of memories can you maybe share of the times that you've done those events, that you enjoy them, that you're looking forward to then going to Orlando?
Well, going to the very first one, it was what I was just becoming acquainted with what FSH was, and saw the great variety of how people are affected by it. And it seemed to be examples of all of those at the conference, which was very exciting to see, that we're all in the same boat, perhaps affected differently. And it was time to share with others, which I find really rewarding. And then to be able to hear what the clinicians and other presenters had to say, and then be able to ask questions. They had a breakout where we got to mix it up with just the people with FSH, two large groups, and then there were opportunities after hours to talk with them during the meals, and I really enjoyed it. So I went back down to Atlanta, took my significant other with me, and her son, and also another person with FSH from Knoxville, and we've got about a community of about 10 people with FSH right here in Knoxville. We've all met, and so I think that's extremely rewarding, being able to relate to other people with FSH.
Now, the community that you're talking about in Knoxville, is that like an organized chapter you kind of created? Did that spawn off of the meeting at either Las Vegas or the Atlanta group, or is how did that all kind of come together? You made the connections with those people there near you.
Well, the society mentioned a friend that has become a friend, Peggy, who's been in the area and very proactive. And between the two of us, we tried to reach out to the society, see if there were other people, and certain people started coming up into the known area. And we all gathered as friends with FSH, had our own meetings and parties, and then eventually were approached to have a chapter. We've had 2 chapter heads, but during the pandemic, running a chapter is a little difficult. But we have had a couple meetings and met with some people that might help us as a group too. So I think after the pandemic's over that we'll all meet up again, but we liked sharing any kind of information that helped any of us, and everybody's very willing. So that's nice.
What was that first meeting like for you, meeting someone else with FSHD? I know that your brother has it as well, but I guess someone outside of the family that you got a chance to kind of talk and share your experiences with. Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you?
Peggy Glenn, I'm sure she doesn't mind me mentioning her name. She is a very proactive person, which is exciting because the people that might want to kind of hide the fact that they have FSH, or for whatever reasons, for their job, whatever, that's understandable. But both she and I were very interested in getting as much information as we can. going to clinical trials, trying to improve whatever we can. And we kind of embraced others that might want to join that effort. And one of our chapter heads actually, through working with physical therapy, she was approaching having to be in a wheelchair all the time. She went through some exercises and now she's able to walk too. So it's neat to share that with others who have had successes. If left alone with no kind of information, you don't know really how to improve those situations. So she was very successful, and we're all trying to do that.
So it's a nice community then of sharing that information or sharing things that work for others. Or I've always found, I guess, the adaptability too has been amazing of those that have FSHD, just how we, continue to move forward with whatever the disability might give us or whatever things it might try to take away. We kind of do workarounds. Have you had to create anything like that in your, moving forward as the disease progresses, or no?
Well, without knowing it, we've had these compensatory muscles that have compensated and kind of hid the fact that, well, I can't do a sit-up, but there's lots of people who can't do sit-ups, but I have a reason now to understand why. And yes, I've got things that have helped tremendously. And with June, we posted something on the blog about double compression belts with those that have distended bellies that have lost their core muscles. For me, it was changed from night to day, and how much it helped me from preventing lower back spasms, and I was still working. So that was fantastic. And so that's one of the principal things that I use. And another is, having been in the Fulcrum clinical trial for losmapimod, before then I was having tremendous amount of fatigue, daytime fatigue and daytime sleepiness, even though I was sleeping a tremendous amount at night. And 5 weeks into that improved greatly. So I went back to a time when I wasn't experiencing that same kind of fatigue. And so that's kind of what I'm working on now and investigating it. And Heloise was, I think, someone you interviewed also.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it was listening to her that I went to a pulmonologist, also through one of our people on Wellness Hour, Dave, who's a psychologist, David Young. I went to a sleep clinic and they determined, I was surprised, that I've got severe sleep apnea, but it's related to shallow breathing, not snoring or the muscles in the neck. And so I've been on a BiPAP for 3 weeks now, and it's brought all of those apneas, which are 10 seconds for not breathing during an hour, from 45 down to 2. And my blood oxygen level had dropped down as low as 80, which is really bad news. And now it's going back up to 95, but I'm just at the beginning of this development. So, but that's going to be another great thing to have happen over time, dealing with this.
Yeah, I can totally relate to the sleep apnea issue. Yeah, I was feeling the same or similar effects where, like, I think I'm sleeping through the day, and it wasn't until I had my little app or whatever, when you check it, if it's the iPhone thing that you deal with, or if it's the other device that you put on your wrist as you sleep, as you go through your day, so it counts your steps and etc. And I was kind of looking through the sleep log part of that app, and it said I took like a sleep in for like a half an hour or so in the middle of a work day, and I had no idea I fell asleep at my desk, to be honest with you. And I was like, whoa, that was a little shocking. And I knew I was feeling groggy and all that stuff for months, didn't know what it was. And like you, I went and got a sleep study done, and they started to do more investigating on it. And then my neurologist even said, yeah, that's going to be a kind of a common thing. And like you mentioned, you talked about it being shallow breathing. For me, it was the whole neck muscle thing, because tying in even the other item that you mentioned about compensation, how our other muscles will perform to kind of make up for the things that are not. My neck and upper area here has been doing most of the lifting throughout my whole life. So increasing the neck muscles, hence, making the airway smaller, hence having a problem sleeping. It's just ridiculous, right? That this chain of events leads to something else that is, I guess, FSHD related. And you're like, oh my goodness, but you adapt. I'm on a CPAP, you're on a BiPAP, and you adjust and you get the right tools to hopefully, carry you through to the next thing, to the next whatever hurdle you have to, accomplish. So thanks for sharing that story about the sleep apnea thing. I don't know if a lot of people that have FSHD realize that it can actually affect that part of your life as well. The other question I wanted to ask you, though, was definitely more targeted to the belt that you were talking about. I read a little bit of that blog, and I couldn't help but think, does it also kind of help maybe a little bit of the self-esteem side of it, especially, if, we're carrying this stomach settling down, like making it look like we have a large belly, and maybe we do, maybe we don't. I do maybe more than I should, but without the muscles to kind of help hold things in place, does that belt also help in that regard?
Well, it was a physical therapist that first recommended it generally as a double compression belt while I was up in Rochester. And so I've tried many, many belts. And then talking with June about this, she said, well, we should write something. And the effect is, yes, it makes your appearance out in public a whole lot better. And when I went to that one in Atlanta, people came up to me and some young women were saying, everybody thinks I'm pregnant. It's very embarrassing. And this, it's like we've got an excuse to wear a slimming effect and can go out. So self-image is really nice, because there are all kinds of discreet belts that you don't really notice that you're wearing them. And but it stopped me from the continual injury of my lower back, also gaining weight because I couldn't work out because I just kept re-injuring my back. It helped correct the lordosis, curvature of the spine. So I've been wearing them during all waking hours now for 8+ years, keep refining what I need, have belts for different occasions. So that's improved the quality of life for me tremendously, a little bit better sense of balance. But physical therapists have been really wonderful in helping develop what we've got to work with and making it better.
So then is that how those that are interested in trying to find out what is their best fit for them, if they want to pursue that double compression belt, should they work through a physical therapist to do that?
Well, the one that told me about it, she said, oh, there's lots of them online, just go and experiment. And then when people have contacted me, while I had a couple of suggestions, I just said, really, you should, they're not, a lot of them aren't really very expensive. Just find out which ones might work for you. There could be ones that you wear in the summer, ones that you wear in the winter, some that are more rigid and, won't expand. Others will expand a little bit. So tremendous varieties. The thing that I noticed the most was a lot of them tend to fold over in the front. And just from, getting up, sitting down, bending over, and that defeats the purpose because then you get this V in your abdomen and it pinches as opposed to creating a nice flat support for your abdomen. So that's one of the tricks to getting to know what's better, because a lot of them are designed to help your back, whereas we're trying to help our abdominal wall.
Right. Yeah, that's going to be then a little bit of experimentation. I'd imagine try on, work with it, see how that affects things, because I can definitely say I'm I'm 46 years old, and it has definitely already affected my, torso muscles, where it feels like if I lean forward and get my chest above my, or in front of my feet as I bend down or something like that. I coach a lot of kids in sports and baseball still. I find that I almost want to tip over. Like, it's just like, oh, it's hard. Like you mentioned, holding your balance. Is that kind of what you're talking about, where you're changing your posture, that your balance gets a little off, or is it just in the act of walking as well?
Well, two elements to that is, first of all, without any support there and you're walking and you have no support for all of those intestines and everything, they just go forward and down with every movement, and it displaces all of those intestines. That's painful, and they're all in the wrong spot. So this holds them into the right area, which is good. And then the second aspect what were we, what was it?
Well, kind of like, like if I was going to
Oh,
change my posture.
that came from a physical therapist, and this happens to normal people too. Kind of a slacker where you have bad posture, and what she said is that a lot of us unconsciously rely on our hip ligaments to walk around when they're really not designed for that. We have to engage our glutes, our butts, and our abdominals for what little we have, try to create a straight posture, because what I experienced was I'd be walking and all of a sudden it felt like I would just double over backwards. It's like, why didn't they? But when she woke me up to the idea that stop counting on your hip ligaments to hold your trunk up, engage your glutes and engage your abdominal, try to stand up as straight as you can. And if adjust, sending those messages to your brain that helps you maintain that. But that made a big difference to me. But it was only a physical therapist that woke me up to that.
Yeah. It sounds like we should, having a physical therapist is not a bad idea. It sounds like it's kind of if those that don't have one yet, it might be a good idea. They're very
expensive if you don't have insurance.
True.
So now I'm on Medicare. I can go see physical therapists, but I always counted, was actually with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, that I was able to see a neurologist in company with a physical therapist for several years, but then that stopped.
Okay.
But anytime I've gone to any of these clinical trials, we do a lot of tests with the physical therapist, but they're supposed to stay within the confines of what that test is. They're not really able to open that up very much, but they can add little things. But going to one privately to work specifically on your questions and needs has been fantastic. This year's been exceptional that way.
You mentioned too about, clinical trials. How many have you been involved with over your time dealing with FSHD?
I think at least 5, all headed and started with Dr. Twill or in Rochester with other neurologists up there. And then I started another one in Kansas City, just mixing it up really. And that was with Dr. Statlin. And then the Fulcrum trial came up, and I switched out of the other one into that one, thanks to Dr. Statlin. And I got in just at the right time, because after the placebo months, I was able to go into the open label, which that visit, that day of that trial was when the pandemic was declared. So all of the airports were empty on my way back, but I had started that day. So not only 6 months earlier was I one of the first 60 around the world, but then at the start of the open label and the beginning of the pandemic, I got on before a lot of people were able to. By the end of the year, most others got on it, but I got a good head start, and I'm still on it, and it still maintains its positive effect.
Nice. Very good. Yeah, I know you can probably only say so much about the work that you're doing within your current, trial. So I don't want to press you on, certain avenues that you can't discuss certain things on it. So I kind of want to keep it more generalized. And that is, what do you find is the biggest motivating factor that got you involved or want to do clinical trials? Maybe for those that are on the fence and they're not quite sure if they want to get involved, even if it's studies for that matter, not just clinical trials. What was your motivational factor to get involved?
Well, the very first with Dr. Twill was that they actually offered a DNA test to confirm the diagnosis. And for a lot of these, you need to have that confirmation. And the DNA test on your own, at least at that time, was very expensive. So that was one of the benefits. And I got to deal with Dr. Twill, a specialist neurologist in the field of FSH. That was going to be an advantage. So I was happy to go at any trial that was open that they would accept. And so there were 3 or more there that over the years I'd go up. They made it very convenient to go up to pay for expenses. And so that's while I was still working. So I had to do that within a work schedule, which can be a little difficult. I didn't do the Acceleron, even though it was just over in the next state, because the scheduling almost made it mandatory that you lived in that area.
Okay.
But generally, these trials will help defray costs, if not handle all of the costs. But for me, beyond getting the diagnosis, it was getting my foot in the door for any kind of advances in the research for this disease. And I think it's because I was there that I was able to get into the Fulcrum study, because not everybody's available. And my brother, unfortunately, had gone over 65, but I was under 65. And for that particular trial, there was an age limit. But the ones that are upcoming, that may be different kinds of cures, they're the one that I'm interested in Ohio is supposed to be a one-time 100% cure if it gets the funding, and there's not going to be any age limits. So that might be open to anybody.
Sounds like you're plugging a little bit for that one for people to get involved.
Personally, everybody's got to do it. But yes, I think clinical trials help us personally and then help the whole society. And I certainly want to, before I leave, give a lot of credit to the society in Juneau. I've gotten to know quite well, but they certainly help all of us personally. And there's lots of information out. So, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. No, June is great. Yeah. No, June is amazing. She's the person that answered my, I guess, request of, I said, hey, you guys don't have a podcast. Do you want one? I can host it. And the response from June was obviously positive and exciting to get it going. And that was years ago. And she's been just so involved with so many pieces of what happens at the FSHD Society and involvement with the community. I'm really surprised she even rests or sleeps or.
No, there's probably 2 or 3 Junes.
Yeah, there has to be. I'm just like, she's all over the place. I guess, yeah, tell us a little bit about your first, involvements with the FSHD Society. How did that connection start for you?
Well, I learned that Daniel Perez was the president at that time, and I knew a little of his history, but I got to meet him at the first meeting in Las Vegas. He was very limited in talking and getting around, but it was pretty nice to have met him and known how much he has done to create the society and make it move forward and get all kinds of funding. So the backbone of the society that he represented, and then there's the board and others, it's all well represented in those biannual conferences. But now we've seen it online during the pandemic and continues to flourish. So what June has with her wellness hour, which is once a month, and that just keeps growing, and people from all over the world are showing up, which is fantastic. From South America, from England, from India, and from Spain. So I'm really enjoying that. We won't see them at the conferences necessarily because for the expense, but the virtual platform has been fantastic.
Yeah. Did you ever think when you first, got your involvement and then went to that first conference in Las Vegas that this would grow to where it is at this point with so many chapters? You're talking about, the virtual connections as well. You'd meet people throughout the world with it.
Well, I felt that the society was very well run, and it was providing an opportunity for someone like me who wants to be very proactive to follow everything that's being done. And it just keeps getting better and bigger, and I'm very happy. And I wasn't getting that from the Muscular Dystrophy Association to the same way. And I've never quite understood. It's just, I've been told they let FSH Society take care of all of that, and they'll take care of all the rest, which is unfortunate. There should be a better communication. I think the MD Society should announce the biannual conferences for FSH, because I'd like to see as many people come to that as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of wish that there was more of a connection there too. It almost feels like there's the MDA and then there's us. And
CIA and FBI.
Right. Right. Are they on the same side or
You'd think so.
Yeah, it feels like it. It should be. Yeah. But there's always that little bit of, I don't know if it's a disconnect, or like you said, I think you worded it well, where they're like, well, MDA probably thinks FSHD Society has their thing under control. So that's one less piece that they have to get involved in because it's already being handled, which is a compliment. because I think it's being handled extremely well. The staff, the people that I've met within the group, and then of course the expanded community that just keeps seeming to grow and grow and grow, has been amazing. I've always kind of said to some people that if I didn't have FSHD, it sounds twisted in a way out loud, but that's one of the positives of having it is meeting the people that I've had the pleasure of connecting with. Without it, I wouldn't have never met them. It would just not have been. You being also one of those people. So, if there's any blessing in it, I want to say that you can find it. You just have to kind of be aware of it. Do you feel the same way in some regards?
Oh no, absolutely. But that's my nature anyway. I'm happy to embrace all of these people that are experiencing something along the same lines, and that we all might have something to share. And I certainly want to share anything that's been a positive advancement for my own personal life. And I've learned so much from the others too. Mm-hmm. So all of us working together to a better experience has been wonderful. And I didn't mean to speak against the Muscular Dystrophy Association, because they were the first ones to help me at all. Getting to a neurologist and a physical therapist. We had local meetings until all of that stopped for lack of funding. Mm-hmm. But it's the FSH that I've switched over to that society largely for all the benefits that they offer, which are great and vast.
No, I totally hear that. And MDA has their great purposes and they do great things. There's no question. But this is FSHD Society is definitely more targeted into our community. And that to me is why it's so much more beneficial. Going now into the new year here, or even I know the goal of the FSHD Society is getting that cure by 2025. How do you feel about that? Do you feel positive that we're headed in the right direction? Do you think that a cure from your perspective is on the horizon?
I do. I want to keep my foot in the door in case one comes along that I would jump into that trial.
Yeah.
So that was the one that I mentioned, sounded the most close to happening. He talked about it. I think it's Dr. Scott said that if they get the funding, they might enter into trial by the end of 22, which would be wonderful. We'll see. But there are many others out there, many others. I think there's 2 or 3 others that are working towards going into trial, and all have different approaches to being a cure. And but I'm on the one that's out there. So
that's exciting. That's exciting.
It is exciting.
Yeah. I mean, and thank you for doing that, being a part of that trial. You're helping the community, of course. It affects you as well directly, but you're part of the community. That's just how it works. Last question for you then, I guess, is maybe like a question of advice for those that might be listening that have just been recently diagnosed. You're someone that's obviously handling it very well, putting positivity in it, moving forward through life despite the fact that FSHD is walking along with you here. What advice do you have to give to those people maybe recently diagnosed?
Well, it's interesting in the beginning. First of all, so many are misdiagnosed, and then your local neurologist may not even be that aware of what FSH is. They've given more attention to ALS and the more fatal muscular dystrophies. So to know that there's an FSH society, which I didn't know to begin with, was fantastic. And that if you're new to this, I think entering through the FSH society is a great way to become aware of everything that's out there. They just are a tremendous base for meeting others, knowing what's available, tremendous source of webinars, radio shows. So that, if you're interested in bettering your situation, certainly there are people out there that are just ready to embrace you and help you as much as you can. And that wellness hour is full of friends that have FSH and are so happy to either listen or offer. And they all have their own experiences to add on to yours. So it's a wonderful community.
Absolutely.
Don't be shy.
Right. Don't be shy. I like that. Makes sense to me, right? Reach out to the community. They reach back. They help you through things. There's a whole wide variety of things that can help you. If it's on the psychological side, the physical side, read great blog posts like about yours, especially with the double compression. I mean, I read through it, didn't even know that kind of a thing existed. I'm already thinking about getting some to see if I can benefit from it. So you had a lot of great things to offer us today, Rick. I'm really appreciative of your time and spending it with us a little bit today. Really appreciate it.
Glad you have this. This is wonderful. I appreciate your radio show.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, Tim.
You as well. And I might meet you in Orlando. I think I plan on being there as well. So
I know what you look like.
Yeah, now you know what you look like. I know what you look like. At least I'll know one person, for sure. I can go, hey, I know that guy. So that'll be awesome. It would be a pleasure to meet you face to face.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you. That is Rick Whitehead. He is always here to help the community out. And you can check out that blog. It's at fshdsociety.org. And it is a great place to get information. So do that, fshdsociety.org. Why don't we take a quick break? We come back, we'll talk about some other things, little takeaways from that conversation. You're listening to the FSHD Society Radio Show. You're listening to the FSHD Society Radio Show. FSHD Radio is sponsored by Dyne Therapeutics, a muscle disease company focused on advancing innovative, life-transforming therapeutics for people living with genetically driven diseases. Dyne is developing a broad portfolio of therapies for muscle diseases, including programs in facioscapulohumeral muscular dystrophy, myotonic dystrophy type 1, and Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. Utilizing its proprietary FORCE platform, Dyne is developing modern oligonucleotide therapeutic candidates designed to overcome limitations in delivery to muscle. For more information, please visit dyne-tx.com and follow Dyne on LinkedIn and Twitter. Welcome back to the show, FSHD Society Radio Show. So glad that you can be a part of our episodes. They are pre-recorded, granted, but I try to follow along. And even though I get a little bit creeped out watching myself on, on Facebook and listening, some people are like that. I'm one of those people, but it is a sacrifice I'm willing to make to be connected with all the great people watching the show. And if you have comments out there, I'll try to always chime along. Rick Whitehead is just, I can't help but take away a couple things that I write down when I'm doing the interviews. And the takeaways were his sense of community, his sense of connection to that community, and his positivity. I mean, it is right there, just flowing out of him very easily. This is a thing. This is what I deal with. Fortunately, as he mentioned, being a professional artist, it's not really affected that. That's great. What a blessing. It has affected others, though, that you have a hard time moving forward in the job you're currently doing, or you're confused of what direction to go. I'm one of those people. I'm at 46 years old, as I've mentioned, and I have to figure out what am I going to do going forward into my 50s, because this disease is already kind of taking its toll, considering I've done only kind of physical labor type jobs my whole life. How do I adjust? How do I pivot and move forward and stay positive? Because people that might be surprised that only know me through this platform, but the people that know me beyond it, I'm not a very positive person by nature. My wife would be shaking her head. That is true. I have to work at it. I have to surround myself with positive people, positive things, and remind myself that it's not Pollyanna positive or a false positive sense of the environment or the situation you're in. It's an acceptance of the fact that you are there. This does suck. How do I get forward? How do I work through it anyway? Because there is no other choice. That is what we have to do. And what I loved about the conversation here with Rick is that he seemed to already have made that choice long ago and is living that choice every day. And the article about the double compression support belt is great because it is simplistic in the manner of this is an easy tool to get, to obtain, to use. There's multiple versions. Find the one that fits for you. It offers you great help, great support. And support is one of the key words, like I said, kind of took away from that conversation. It's just phenomenal the way it works. So I'd love to hear your comments about the show, about that interview, either right now on Facebook would be great, as if we all chime in as a community, and also the FSHD email, the radio show email, FSHD Radio at FSHDsociety.org. I have a couple more sponsor clips that we got to play. Make sure we always have time for those. We'll take another break here. It's here from Fulcrum, which is kind of what I think the big exciting news that Rick wants to talk about, but he couldn't talk about. So this is our little promo from Fulcrum. Today's FSHD Society radio show is sponsored by Fulcrum Therapeutics. Fulcrum is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, advancing new medicines that target the root cause of genetically defined rare diseases, such as FSHD and sickle cell disease. Fulcrum's approach to drug discovery combines insights from patients with rare diseases with the most advanced tools to identify and develop therapeutics that will target the root cause. For several years, Fulcrum has been honored to work with the FSHD community in efforts to build awareness of the impact of FSHD on individuals and families. Fulcrum works in partnership with leaders from the patient advocacy and medical communities to highlight the impact of rare diseases and support continued research. You can connect with Fulcrum on LinkedIn and follow them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fulcrum TX. Thanks for hanging out with us here, FSHD Society Radio Show. Thank you to Fulcrum for being a sponsor of the show. Always great, awesome to have them here. Great sponsorship. I know that is one of the trials that are out there. Lomazepam, or however you may pronounce it. I just probably butchered it like I do a lot of those things. And I believe that our guest, Rick Whitehead, is involved in that. And he could say that he was excited about it. Can't really venture much further into it because of what Fulcrum wants to release about it at this point when the show is recorded, but just know that it's positive feelings about it, not negative. So that's what we can give you from there. Rick also mentioned the Orlando FSHD Connect Conference. That's coming up June 18th through the 19th. It is the FSHD's flagship educational conference, right? It's held every 2 years. It's the world's largest networking event of FSHD community, and so much to offer there. There is, of course, already things about it on the events calendar, and I wanted to talk about that briefly here before we close up shop for this show. And it's out there. It's definitely something you want to be a part of. You'll be meeting, learning from the greatest experts, other patients, families just like yours. It is one of those great events you want to mark your calendars for. So it's June 18th through the 19th, Orlando, Florida. I said, how come you guys couldn't put that in January in Orlando? That'd be great for me because that'd be awesome. I could head down there when it's cold and act like it's not winter. So anywho, but it is when it is, and maybe get involved with that would be awesome. The details, current details are out there right now on FSHDsociety.org. So it's always about community here, isn't it? It's a connection. And that's really, I think, my biggest takeaways from the conversation today. And as you look forward, look around in your community. Is there a chapter close? Is there meetings you can be a part of, or even virtually? And he talked about the wellness hour, meeting people globally. Jun Kinoshita, Lee Reynolds, and so many others at the FSHD Society, Mark Stone being our leadership, is just been phenomenal to have that. And these events and these things are key. One of the other events too that I always like to mention as I'm clicking frantically on the calendar to talk about two things: the early onset parent roundtable, that's out there. Be a part of that if you can, if you're so bold. That is a great area of support. Women on Wellness, those are another great community to be a part of. The Wellness Hour, as mentioned, be a part of that one as well. There's so many things that are offered to people that can help you out. The Sharegiver Hour is another great thing. So there's multiple things from multiple vantage points of this disease that you can be a part of to help in your time or what stage you're in. So please, I really implore you to be a part of that. Go to fshdsociety.org, get on the calendars page, find something that maybe fits for you. Start the path if you're kind of in a dark place about this and you just need to reach out. Just attend one meeting, one thing that kind of gets you up and out. Contact me if you'd like. I'm always here. As we close up shop, I wanted to make sure that you know that I'm not just here during the shows, during the events that we do that I love to be a part of, but if there's things you want to connect with beyond the show, I'm here for you. Email me to start, fshdradio@fshdsociety.org. Do whatever I can to help you as well. And it helps me too. It helps me with that connection that I so need as well. So thanks again to Rick Whitehead for joining us, being here on the show. We look forward to the next episode and having you join us then. Until then, you've been listening to the FSHD Society radio show. Take care. Today's podcast is sponsored by PerkinElmer Genomics, a market leader in biochemical and genomic testing solutions. PerkinElmer Genomics understands that obtaining a confirmed genetic diagnosis for FSHD can be difficult and frustrating experience for both patients and their families. That's why their laboratory prides itself on launching new and innovative technologies to help families find answers that they are looking for. Just over a year ago, PerkinElmer Genomics introduced the first new diagnostic approach to FSHD type 1 genetic testing in nearly 3 decades. This testing has drastically decreased the time to diagnose while increasing accessibility to patients. Knowing the underlying cause of FSHD can have important implications for the entire family, including help with future medical management decisions. Speak with your provider today and learn more about how you can get testing. Visit PerkinElmerGenomics.com to find out more about available testing options for FSHD and other related neuromuscular disorders that may help you and your family today. That's PerkinElmer Genomics.com.